I'd like to call this meeting of Charleston City Council, February 9th, 2016, to order. Madam Clerk, please call a roll.
Councilmember White. Councilmember Williams. Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Wagner. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shade.
Present.
Councilmember Regal.
Here.
Councilmember Moody.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson. Here. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. Councilmember Gregory expressed his regrets he would not be with us this evening. I'd like next to call on Councilmember Regal for the invocation and the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please remain standing for pledge of allegiance to the flag of this great country. Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you bless this February 9th, 2016 meeting of Charleston City Council and many guests, city staff, and citizens who are in attendance tonight. We ask that you hear our prayers tonight to provide your wisdom and guidance to this body as we, leaders of this great city, strive to make the best possible decisions as we deliberate the many issues before us. Decisions that affect the day in and day out the lives of our citizens. Dear Lord, we ask that you keep a watchful eye over the many Charleston City employees and keep safe these wonderful men and women who work day or night, rain or shine, to provide fire protection, police protection, and many, many other services to residents of this city, and who enable us to enjoy our marvelous quality of life. Finally, we are always reminded of the many men and women who serve in our military, who are often in faraway places or in harm's way. We ask that you remember them as well, families who anxiously await their safe return. Dear Lord, we give thanks to you for the strength that you give us each and every day to earn our daily bread. In thy name, amen. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now, I don't want to give council the impression that we haven't been hard at work and busy doing a number of things, because we have, but we have no presentations and recognitions this evening, and no public hearings, and hence no act on public hearings. So next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So already next on the agenda is our citizens participation period, which we allow up to 30 minutes. Could I ask a show of hands of how many folks would like to be heard during citizens participation this evening? And one up here, 3 up there, so we got about 20. I'm going to say 90 seconds per address so that we try to keep it reasonably to our time limit. Now, if I may, at the pleasure of council, ask your indulgence to allow our attorney, Francis Cantwell, to make some explanation about one of the items on the agenda tonight. I think a number of folks are here to address the issue of modification in a vote required regarding the Planning Commission, and there have been a lot of comments about it today, and I'm not looking to change anybody's mind, but just make it clear what it is that's being proposed prior to the public discussion. Is that okay with council?
Fine. Excellent idea.
Mayor Tecklenburg, I'm sure she will, but she will also explain the procedure which this ordinance will take if it leaves these chambers and goes to the Planning Commission. I think that's important for people to understand, too.
Correct, and I think she plans to address that.
Thank you.
In addition, Mr. Mayor, while people come, we might remind everyone to turn their cell phones off, please.
Cell phones off, please. Thank you. And I'm going to check mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of council, ladies and gentlemen, what I thought I would do is start out with what the status of the law is today with respect to recommendations that come to this body from the Planning Commission. This has been part of the city's zoning ordinance for many, many years. I'm not going to go back to when I first passed through the city because it'll date me even more than you all think I'm dated. But anyhow, as you know, any zoning recommendation by state law and city ordinance goes to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, and then, which is advisory, and then comes up to y'all for approval or disapproval or amendment or whatever you want to do. There's been a provision in the law that says, and that this is very important, when the Planning Commission votes in the negative on a recommendation, not in the positive, when they say no to something, if staff brings something forward to the Planning Commission and in their estimation they don't like it or they don't think it's a good idea and they vote no, the ordinance that we have on the books would require 10 votes of this council to overturn that recommendation, because the ordinance provides that the supermajority is 3/4 of all the members of council. So 10 votes, whether 13 of you are here or 10 of you are here. So at the last meeting of council, there was discussion about looking at that ordinance with the idea of changing the supermajority and perhaps the threshold of what that supermajority was to be measured against. So in your packet tonight is an ordinance that is up for first reading and for discussion as you see fit, which would change the criteria as to when a supermajority, or as to what the supermajority would be. When the Planning Commission votes no, you would still require a supermajority. I will have to take a caveat. It doesn't apply to an initial zoning, but only to a change. But when the Planning Commission recommends no, rather than being 3/4 of the members of the entire body, the ordinance reads that the supermajority would drop to 60%, and it would be measured against the members of council who are present. So you wouldn't have to have 60. You wouldn't have to have 60% of 13. You would have 60% of the quorum that is here. Obviously, that's up for discussion among you. That's going to be vetted by the Planning Commission, which I'll explain in a minute. But that is the ordinance that's before council. And I have read in the paper where it seems to be that there's a perception out there that every vote from the Planning Commission requires 3/4 vote of council. That's not true. It's only the negative vote, and that's, wanted to make that clear, and then and to explain that that's the ordinance that's before you tonight.
Councilmember Regal.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask the question of the esteemed legal counsel, is there not the potential for the Planning Commission to wordsmith the recommendation into a nay or no format? What happens if you disagree and say yay or yes? I apologize. Start over. I'm sorry. Thank you, esteemed counsel. Question I have, is there potential for the Planning Commission to wordsmith a recommendation into a nay or no format? Does that potential exist? Secondly, is there no recourse for a yes or yay recommendation from the Planning Commission that City Council can override? Thank you.
Well, let me answer the second question first. If the Planning Commission votes for something, or they recommend that you do something, you can choose to do it or not to do it, and it only takes a simple majority of whoever is here. So this ordinance that's on the books now and the one that is drafted only applies in the instances where the Planning Commission's recommendation is in the negative. Your second question about wordsmithing a vote or a motion to make it a negative vote, I don't think the Planning Commission, first of all, that's never been my experience with them ever. Usually the proposal is X, and it's either yes or no. And so I don't think that first of all, I don't think they do it, and I think the potential for that happening is very slim.
Councilmember Shade.
As a matter of clarification, you made a comment concerning the criteria for the Planning Commission to vote out a a decision. Can you elaborate on what that criteria may be?
Well, the Planning Commission, they're charged with doing a number of things, but for a rezoning, for example, they look at the property, they look at what's around it, they look as to see whether it's it's compatible with the comprehensive plan, they look at the specific uses, if it's a change in use, to see if they think it would be beneficial, not just to that property, but to the area in general. There are a lot of community-minded, in that respect, goals and criteria that the Planning Commission weighs every time they have something before them. And they also have the recommendations and input of their professional staff.
One more follow-up question, if I may. During the Planning Commission's deliberation, do they take into account at that point public input?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Seekins.
I just want to make sure you now tell us about the method by which this is going to leave these chambers, go to the Planning Commission, and come back, so everyone here understands and perhaps sees some of the irony in what is about to happen.
Well, the short answer is this is going to be done just like any other zoning
Right.
ordinance. Actually, what will happen is if City Council chooses to act on this ordinance tonight and send it to the Planning Commission, it will go through, it'll come before the commission at a duly advertised public hearing. The public will be able to weigh in. Staff will give a report on what its thinking is on the ordinance, and the Planning Commission will then vote out a recommendation. If it's a positive recommendation, it would come back to this council, and y'all could decide to accept it or reject it. If it's a negative recommendation, the irony is, it will take 10 votes of City Council to enact it.
Councilmember Moody.
Ms. Cantwell, there are 9 members of the Planning Commission, is that correct?
I think they're not. Don't hold me to that.
They're 9.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make that point. As far as the Planning Commission is concerned, if they deny something, how many members of that 9-member commission have to vote to turn something down? 3/4?
But the majority of those present.
In other words, 5 can do that. So a simple majority, they can turn down something. And so what you're asking or telling us is if it comes to us, we need 10 of ours
Correct.
to do that. That's what I thought. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of council? Councilmember Waring.
Is that constitutional
The 3/4 vote?
Yeah.
Sure.
of an elected body?
I
From
think
an
it would
appointed
pass.
bo- From an
Well,
appointed body?
this elected body passed it.
It's our ordinance. And has been for 40 years.
Councilmember Wagner, I'm sorry.
I think I just heard her say that if we say we want to go forward with this, then it goes to Planning Commission, and they decide if it's okay, and then it comes back to us.
That's correct.
And if they say no, we have to have 10 votes to override them.
That's correct.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that I heard that, because somehow my math doesn't seem to work that way.
That's-
I'm sorry about that.
That's right. All right. Any other questions? Councilmember Regal.
Just a quick question then, if this is an ordinance this body, esteemed body passed, maybe it behooves us to modify or change that ordinance. I'm just throwing that out there, you know.
That's what we're trying to do.
That's why it's on the floor. Or will be, it's not on the floor yet. Yeah. Councilmember Lewis.
So the ordinance now that we are thinking about changing, a former council, city council, passed those ordinances years ago,
Yes, sir.
but it's conforming with state law.
It's not in state law, but,
That's state law.
but,
State law gives the council the authority
yes, sir.
to set the ordinances. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilmember Waring.
So the state law gives the council the authority to set the ordinance.
Correct.
What gives the law to planning commission to vote against that?
The
What
state-
body law? The
State
state law?
statute, state
The state
statute,
statute?
because any zoning measure, the process that's set up by the enabling legislation requires a recommendation from the Planning Commission. And so if you're going to change the rules on something, if you're going to rezone something, then you run it through the Planning Commission, you get their recommendation, then you all come up and that recommendation is probably is taken into consideration as you debate your vote.
And the 75% threshold is based in state law?
Excuse me?
The 75% threshold is based in state law?
No, sir. It's based on city local ordinance that's been in this ordinance for 40-plus years.
One more.
One more follow-up question.
Councilmember Shea.
Do you recommend, or do you have an opinion as to whether or not we can amend the current proposed ordinance to bypass the Planning Commission's review of this?
All right, let me see if I understand that. Can you amend Section 54, whatever, of the code without having Planning Commission review? My opinion is no.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cantwell. Any other questions? Thank you very much. So we will proceed with our citizen participation period. Who would like to be heard? Yes, sir. We'll start with you. Please state your name and address.
Thank you very much and good evening. Mayor Tecklenburg, members of City Council, I am Christopher Cody and I am representing Historic Charleston Foundation. I'm joined by our President and CEO, Kitty Robinson. Historic Charleston Foundation is opposed to the proposed ordinance to amend 54-943C. We see no positive benefit that it provides the city nor the public, and believe that the passage of this ordinance will encourage the appeal of more Planning Commission decisions to an already overburdened City Council. We believe City Council is not the appropriate venue for a large number of Planning Commission appeals. Rather, we believe the long-term planning decisions are best executed by appointed bodies like the Planning Commission that have a narrow and specific purview. We believe that this ordinance attempts to fix something that is not broken and would result in a detriment to public involvement in the planning process and to the efficacy of both City Council and the Planning Commission. We believe that the current process serves the city and the public well with a 75% majority vote of the entire City Council as opposed to the proposed 60% members present only vote. We respectfully ask you to vote in opposition to this proposed ordinance, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Captain America.
My name is Robert Jenkins. I'll go with Captain America. Thank you for the opportunity to exercise my freedom of speech. I'm here about the homeless and the poor. I don't think anybody on City Council would like to live in 180 Place. I'm pretty sure it's a nice place, but you wouldn't trade your homes for there. Eugene, Oregon has Dignity Village. There are paradigms that have shifted in the way that homeless are treated. I wish I could make you all care. I wish I could do something dramatic. I wish I could bring some lightning and thunder to encourage City Council to look upon the poor and the homeless with some mercy. This land is your land. This land is my land. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Yes, sir. Mr. Idris.
Evening, Mayor Tecklenburg.
Yes, sir.
City Council, ladies and gentlemen. Muhammad Idris. If we would practice what the rabbi said at the last City Council meeting, we will be the best city in America. He said, let our inside be the same as our outside. In other words, he was saying, don't be a hypocrite. Also, if we practice what we preach, we would not have all these people living in tents while we are using taxpayers' money to help people live better on the Battery. If we would do as the rabbi said, we would not lie to the people to get them to move because they cannot use eminent domain to get them to move out of their living places. And they were living for more than 5 generations. So I agree with the rabbi. We as a city should practice what we say. We open our meeting in the name of God, but we have been doing the work of the devil. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Bass. I live on State Street. I'm the president of the French Quarter Neighborhood Association, and I'm here to speak about the 3/4 vote of the City Council to override a veto by the Planning Commission. And I just want to say that such a move would shift the balance of planning decisions from the citizen members of the Planning Commission to elected members of council. And also you need to bear in mind that whenever you go from a vote of all of the City Council to just members present, that the number of members present can be a manipulated number and an orchestrated number. That really bothers us too. City council members should not be given the prerogative to easily overturn planning commission decisions. Strong checks and balances must prevail. We think that to support this proposed ordinance would undermine the integrity of the public process. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Moses Brunson. I'm the founder and CEO of the Tiny House Project of Charleston, which is a nonprofit organization with 501c3 status. We have a business plan to build tiny houses for the homeless. I've been in well over 500 meetings talking about homelessness and affordable housing. It's been 4 years, and I've been standing up in these meetings, and the situation is getting worse and worse, and no one is listening to anything about the Tiny House Project. The Tiny House Project is a project that started in Portland, Oregon, way back in the 80s, and it's been successful. It's all over the country now. It's as close as Michigan, I believe it is. They have a tiny house village, and it's successful. All you have to do is plug in tiny houses on Google, and you'll get a map of the whole, almost the whole country. And it's successful. The crime rates are down. Medical care has balanced itself. People has become taxpayers again, productive citizens again, voting, and all those things that benefits their cities and states. And we have an epidemic here that needs to be addressed. And in 2013, I believe it was, our group presented a proposal to City Council, and it has not been addressed.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Zimrain Bernard Shepard. I don't have a place to stay. I'm going to go to college and get back in with my parents. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Welcome. Great.
I'm Brandon Fish. I'll keep this short because there's people here that are going through this experience that want to speak. But I've been a resident of Charleston for a long time, and we have a problem with homelessness. We have a shelter. It's privately run that has 73 beds in it, can accommodate 170 people in a cold, but there's many more homeless people than that here. And I applaud the mayor and the city for announcing that they want to work towards a solution to homelessness, but I would also encourage that we would have that solution before we evict people from the tents that they do have to live in. It's very cold outside. There's people freezing. There's people that don't have blankets, and I think that it would show that our priorities are in the right place if we come up with a solution that's city or state funded before we kick people out of these tents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
I would like to just, my name is Jason Slade. My name is Jason Slade. I would like to build off of what he's saying, and we need to we need to give these people a situation, a livable situation, before we destroy where they've made a living right now. I mean, we just had the Super Bowl in San Francisco. They swipe people off the street. So the Super Bowl and all their top 1% can make billions of dollars. I mean, we're doing it now here. I mean, the financial crisis in 2008, people are in the situations they're in because of the way our society has gone. So we're the richest nation in the world. We need to help these people. And above that, I mean, the property values are going up. This place is becoming, the place right next to Tent City is over $2,000 for a room in that apartment building right now, what is it, East Central. East Central. I mean, it's ridiculous. I remember I mean, it's New York prices in Charleston. What is going on? The development, the gentrification, the displacement, it has to stop, or else no one's going to be able to live in the city. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm here to address you all very briefly, and just to say that I have not had time to, my name's Gillian Mark. I'm the former president of the Country Club of Charleston. We are on James Island, but part of the city of Charleston, and the people I've been able to speak to, because this has all happened quite suddenly, feel very strongly that we want the Planning Commission to be allowed to do what it's doing now. We don't like the proposed changes, and we also feel very strongly that any type of a compromise at all could just open the door to further and further compromises. We feel City Council is doing the work it's doing, and the Planning Commission is doing its own work, and we would like it to be left that way. And I'm sorry I can't speak more clearly on that issue, but there are a lot of reasons why, and you all know them, I'm sure. And thank you for listening to my points.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Craig Hassler. I apologize if my comments are not going to be speaking directly to the issue that you're discussing at hand, but more dealing with homelessness. I bicycled from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, where I've been homeless since 2012, and have been working on a city-owned warehouse space that's falling down, trying to demonstrate how used, abandoned buildings can be rehabbed, taking things out of the waste stream, cardboard, paper, then raking leaves for free to create lasagna mulch inside and out to plant things. I take recyclables out of the waste stream as well, like aluminum cans, cut and flatten them to make shingles, to do walls, murals, trying to demonstrate that by actually taking these things that we view as waste and spend a lot of money to get rid of, these can actually be manually repurposed and have a value that then people can be paid through piecework to do, thereby giving them work to do that is gainful yet not having to have an overseer, and then taking a lot of waste from the waste stream to take these buildings that are beyond the pale. But unfortunately, so many of the issues that I'm working with do not meet code, and so I ran for a House seat in North Carolina in 2010, trying to promote 3 projects with my campaign, one of which was like this, and then testing these approaches as well as catching rainwater, using gray water, human manure, and then testing those to see if there's problems, just to provide other alternatives, because increasingly communities are facing this problem with expenses for infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
My name is Malik Nicholson. I'm a music artist. They call me Russian Suge. I fell on hard times. When I came down here, I had an unrelated injury to my profession, so I couldn't get back into the workforce as much as I want to. But I'm back working. I'm still out in Tent City, but I'm getting back on my feet, getting housing, and just a little help out there for the people out there that's working, trying to get ahead would be approved. James Richard Sarvis, this was a guy who died about a month ago. He was found dead in his tent for 3 days. 3 days, nobody knew he was dead. He was working, going out every day, trying to get housing. Couldn't find housing, and I feel like if we had more people who gave a concern or have more programs out there that could help people, that keeps checking up on them till they get housing, he could have been found, could have probably been saved and still be here today. So before you just throw everybody out, please come up with a better solution.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, council members, I come here because my heart is heavy when I see our flag say United States, united we stand, and our brothers and sisters out there in the cold weather, inclement weather, suffering, because when I'm in my warm bed, believe me, my heart is heavy. And I spoke to the school district maybe a month ago, and I asked them, I said, listen, if the Archer or old Santa Claus is good enough to train our policemen and fire department, why should it not be good enough for our brothers and sisters to come out of the inclement weather? So their remark was to me, well, Mr. Lewis, if you get somebody, a nonprofit group, to cover the lights and the water, we'll go with it. If the building is being sold, that's what they said. I said, well, until it's being sold, this house, our brothers and sisters out of that inclement weather. So they said to me, and that's why I was trying to get Pastor Gordon about looking to being a nonprofit group to do that. You understand? So again, you guys, we all got to look at each other and say, are we all brothers and sisters keepers? Because our brothers and sisters should not be going through what they're going through out there. Believe me, they shouldn't be going out there. And it's sad that these are United States citizens going through this. You know, we are the laughing stock of the world because we're supposed to be a powerful country. And we letting our brothers and sisters go through these changes. That's sad. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
My name is Sid Schuler. I'm at 20 Green Hill Street, and I'm here about the three-quarter vote, and I hope everybody votes no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, my name is Frances Cardwell. I have a comfortable home, but life can turn on a dime. Catastrophic illness, death, loss of a job can bring about an unexpected reversal of fortune. I have a 90-second poem I've written about this. Everything in short supply, it could happen to you too by and by, or maybe sooner. You did not know in your safe place, life secure could be misplaced. Think again. For on fate's whim, it seems all of life depends. While he looks now for steady wages, pounds the pavement, sends out pages listing all his attributes, he has learned unwelcome truth. Life hangs by a thread that ever so slowly but surely is unraveling. While she travels here and there to grimly self-promote, her life unravels. She has her doubts that it can ever all work out, and she despairs, who was so strong, who feels a fool to have thought that life would always rock along. She lived life comfy in that cradle, deluded by a parent's pledge that earning those degrees would keep her safe and at ease until the grave, her final destination. And for a while it did. But she is living in a nation where catastrophic illness can destroy everything. And drunken drivers are the plague that you should fear. Now, listening to the children cry, he knows he grew up with a lie, for he's standing on a ledge, and he and his are on the edge. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir, over here.
My name is Sean Excuse me. My name is Sean Cantrell. I'm a resident in West Ashley. There's a lot of negative opinions right now about the way that the city is handling the homeless issue. And I want to take a moment to thank y'all, because while some of these problems are still ongoing, y'all are making an effort. And I would hope that everybody can keep that in mind as they're condemning everyone. There's been a problem that's been ongoing for a very long time. The city did make efforts to let a lot of people know that they needed to find permanent shelter or temporary shelter outside of the tents. Some people weren't able to. I think it would benefit all of us if we made sure that we got out and we let these people know where they needed to go, how they could get there, make it easier for them to get their documentation. But guys, we can't beat up our city because they've done nothing. They actually have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Poems and poverty, that's a hard act to follow. Mayor Tecklenburg, respected members of City Council, I'm Angela Drake. I'm a member of Anson Borough, and I'm also president of the historic Anson Borough Neighborhood Association. This isn't about poems or poverty, it's about process, and a process that's under siege. Let us not compromise. Compromise is a good idea for a solution, but we already have a process that works for both change, citizens, and elected officials. With an enduring strong backbone of regulation and practices, Charleston must confront this natural human tendency to do things politically rather than according to the processes in place. The Planning Commission reviews plans, looks at plans related to ordinances, such as zoning ordinances, rezoning, and concept plans. The Planning Commission affords a more thorough, interactive, and participatory review than Council. City Council members should not be given the prerogative to easily overturn Planning Commission's decisions. Strong checks and balances must prevail. To support this proposed ordinance would undermine the integrity of the public process. Let's continue to plan for long-term, thought-out planning and not a short-term compromise. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Tim Muller. I'm chairman of the Peninsula Neighborhood Consortium. We're a group that consists of representatives from all of the Peninsula Neighborhood Associations. You have two proposals on your agenda that are important to us this evening. The first is the non-conforming use statute, which would provide for additional bedrooms. We think that's a positive step and should be implemented. The other one is the Planning Commission change. We encourage you to deny that. That is a system that is not broken. It's worked very well for 40 years. The public is able now to express their opinions at neighborhood associations. That gets conveyed at Planning Commission meetings. And now what you're asking is to have yet another step where the public's going to have to come before this board when things are denied so that we can stop them from getting approved. So I encourage you to just deny this change for the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I believe you've already addressed the council. Could we? Thank you. All right, thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
My name is William Hamilton. I come tonight to speak on behalf of a man who cannot be here. If you're ever fortunate enough to climb the great towers of the Ravenel Bridge, and you stand at the top of them where you're surrounded with nothing but the sky and you look down, I'm told you'll see the handprint of the man that helped build that tower. His name is Jerry Totus. He is generally known nowadays as the mayor of Tent City, and he has labored for 1.5 years to keep it orderly, to keep it clean, to keep it happy, and to help everybody that comes in there. Unfortunately, last night, the strain of watching his community face disintegration, and things have gotten worse in the past few days, as any community facing being ending would do. He had a stroke, and he's currently in the hospital. We offer you the opportunity, not for $50,000, not for $25,000, not for $125 a night, but for little or no money, merely for a piece of land, to build homes that will keep people out of the cold and out of the wet. And with such things, men like Jerry Totus will live longer, healthier lives. They won't have strokes. There are 2 plates on a bridge abutment at Tent City now, or a bridge pillar, for the 2 people that have died there in the last 2 months. I hope that we can build these tiny houses somewhere before any more people die. We need to remember men like Jerry Totus, the men that built our great bridges and our monuments, not as sorry people that are drug addicts or criminals or can't be trusted. There was greatness in them. When they were given the opportunity to do something, they stood up. He worked very hard to build that tiny house. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Elizabeth Peeler, longtime resident of the city and state. Now listening to the children cry, he knows he grew up with a lie, for he is standing on a ledge, and he and his are on the edge of an abyss so wide and deep. The other side seems out of reach, and all he sees ahead of him is the great unknown. She worries that her tires are bald, and like the home that has already slipped away, soon she'll have no car at all. In this land where rich get richer, there are no havens for the frail. They must have done something wrong. No. When I called 211, they said that Charleston, South Carolina had the least amount per capita of any city in the United States to help women. You can be on top of the game, working for a big network career, and have one home invasion or have one beating that forces you to get you and your children out of the house. And guess what? You end up living in a car. And you need Tiny City.
Thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor,
Good
council
evening.
members. I'm Jay Williams, 81 King Street. I'm representing the Charlestown Neighborhood Association, and we're strongly opposed to the ordinance regarding the Planning Commission. However unintentional, tonight's proposed ordinance to make it easier for the City Council to override the Planning Commission is a terrible solution to a non-existent problem. Worse, it will have horrific unintended consequences to the city's planning efforts by substituting a patchwork of individual non-related City Council override decisions for what has been one of the country's most cohesive and thoughtful planning processes. These planning processes with a full public participation were made possible by specially appointed, dedicated, and knowledgeable boards responding in part to carefully designed comprehensive plans. But there's a worse problem. This change, by weakening the Planning Commission's authority by any measure, will give rise to the perception that Charleston's standards have been lowered. Will that be the case? Regardless, there's an old saying that perception is reality. By weakening the power of the appointed expert boards in favor of bestowing greater power on the non-expert elected members of City Council, the City of Charleston will be sending a message, however unintentional. We are open for business. Given the surge of intense developmental pressure, this is the wrong message to send if our goal is to keep Charleston, Charleston. Conversely, if we want to turn Charleston into Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, or a host of other undistinguished cities most people don't care to visit, this ordinance might be the best first step. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Knapp. Yes, sir.
Okay. Mark Knapp. Well, the doo-wop made the honeymoon end. I was going to give the mayor 6 months, but unfortunately, doo-wop turned into Groundhog Day. And for God's sake, council, what did I hear? Another drainage study for West Ashley, another traffic study for West Ashley. Yeah, if I remember correctly, that'll be traffic study number 4 in the last 10 years. Already spent $6 to $7 million. This will be like the 5th or the 6th drainage study, okay? We've got 2 departments that are basically run, I think, by buffoons. I mean, let's face it. I come in the morning at 7 o'clock, and usually through town, and I'm sitting there fighting traffic lights on 17, coming into town, okay? What happened to our $1.5 million computer system? I don't know. As for drainage, we all went, remember the infamous 2-hour tour I followed with the $500,000 truck from Stormwater. All you got to do before you do any studies is you have to start at the low end and clean the ditches and all the storm drains so you at least know what you've got. We don't need any more studies. We need work. If you don't have anybody that can do it, I would suggest you contract it out, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Mayor Tecklenburg, members of the City Council, I'm Robert Gurley with the Preservation Society of Charleston. I'd like to speak regarding item number 3 on bills up for first reading. We believe that this is a well-considered ordinance amendment that will address a core flaw in our existing ordinance, requiring that any increase in the number of bedrooms for non-conforming 2-family and multifamily dwelling uses be reviewed by Board of Zoning Appeals zoning. Will provide neighborhood residents with much-needed protection against the threat of overdevelopment and inappropriate density. And we urge you to, as City Council, to correct this deficiency in our ordinance by giving approval to this long overdue ordinance amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm here to talk about short-term rentals. My name is Matt Doscotch, 36 Moultrie Street.
Thank you, sir.
I'm here to talk about something that hasn't really been on the table, and it's decriminalization. Now, I would like to see decriminalization for homeowner-occupied short-term rentals or home shares. You might remember in the Christmas Story, the inn of the Christmas Story, it was a private residence. There wasn't a Hyatt or a Bohemian back then. It was a cave likely, and any biblical archaeologist will tell you this. Now, for hundreds of years in Charleston, we've been doing this. renting out rooms on a flexible basis, short-term, long-term boarding houses. Right now, it's a criminal act for homeowners to rent for under 30 days. Now, this serves the hotels and protects them from losing 2.6% on the dollar or whatever it is, okay? Meanwhile, our most vulnerable homeowners are stressed. We have bills, and these are real bills. I've lost $15,000 since just since October from being prohibited from doing this. My neighbor can turn me in right now, not on a livability issue like any other rental, and go to livability court for a real livability issue, but just because of this ordinance, just for this 30-day ordinance. So what I propose is decriminalization. It's a no-brainer. There's zero risk. Neighbors still have the protection. If they want to if there's a real livability issue, they can still turn you in. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Please think about this.
Thank you.
We need this. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Christopher King. I'm the executive director of the Preservation Society of Charleston. In 1931, the society worked with this council to create one of the most progressive and effective planning processes of any historic city. We serve as active participants in the planning process as well as advocates for the planning process. And we've done that ever since. I'm here because our membership sees the ordinance to amend Section 54-943C as a fundamental weakening of the planning process. Anything short of your denial will set a poor precedent and be perceived by the community as a step in the wrong direction. The Commission affords a thorough, studied, and participatory review. Its members have expertise in matters of planning and are experts in applying and interpreting the city plans. Their only interest is to serve the betterment of our built environment. We are experiencing unprecedented growth right now, and if we hope to maintain our quality of place and quality of life, it is imperative that Council supports the planning process and resists hasty ideas that do not take the long view. Any dilution or weakening at any level will have significant and perceptible consequences. By changing the rules here, you will be weakening the process and telegraphing it to all. Our process has served this community well for decades and has remained the standard to which all other historic cities look to. I urge you to do what's best for Charleston and deny this amendment. Just as a side note, I'm sure we'll hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor Tecklenburg, members of City Council. My name is Valerie Perry, 231 Grove Street, and I also am a member of the Planning Commission. And I am here tonight to just speak and agree with Historic Charleston Foundation, Preservation Society, and the neighborhood associations. I will tell you diligently that I diligently look through all those applications once I get my packet. I study it. I spend hours of my personal time reviewing it, and these are volunteer hours. And I really enjoy being a part of the planning process. It is something that I do with a great deal of earnestness and thoughtfulness. And I would just urge you to deny this ordinance as proposed this evening. I think that the process is certainly not broken. I think that the other commissioners, much like me, enjoy serving on the commission. We enjoy seeing the public process and being part of that effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Council. My name is Richard Smith, live on South Battery. And as opposed to most of the comments you've heard tonight that have been thoughtful and politically correct, this will not be. Regarding the proposed ordinance changing from 75 to 60%, as it's earlier been said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This proposal is preposterous. Councilman Moody was quoted in the paper today saying the present ordinance, quote, is almost disrespectful. Well, Councilman, what is truly disrespectful is that condescending view. This proposed watering down of a process that has worked very well for many years is not only disrespectful to the Planning Commission and the entire citizenry, it is obscene. And the obscenity is spelled C-O-R-R-U-P-T. Corruption is the heart and soul of this proposed change that is completely unnecessary. I can only hope and pray that a majority of this council can see through the veil of this obscenity for what it is and demonstrate respect for the rest of us.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Councilmember Moody.
I believe that I was just called corrupt. I'd like to address that to find out whether this gentleman has any evidence that I have taken any money or any kind of corruptive activity in regard to this thing, and I challenge that assertion.
Yes, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard? Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm James Doyle, the Vice President of Radcliffe Borough Association. Radcliffe Borough Association does not support the changes to the planning, the voting regarding the Planning Commission. Radcliffe Borough does wholeheartedly support the changes being proposed to the ordinance regarding multifamily non-conforming units. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would
Mr.
anyone else like to be heard? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor
Yes, sir.
and distinguished council members, I am Ben Lenhart, and I live at 37 Church Street, and I'm here to voice my opposition to the proposal for the change of the Planning Commission. And the reason for that is, it is my understanding that you, gentlemen and ladies, appoint the members of the Planning Commission. These are people who are experts, who have expertise and knowledge in the area of planning. And therefore, if they are your people and the people that you appoint, it seems to me that it's only logical that you take their advice and counsel. There can be, of course, situations that you would like to overturn, but in those cases, as stated here, they should be a very high standard, which is at now 75%. So I think you would be best served to keep what you have, which has served you very well for a number of years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Would anyone else like to be heard? If not, that'll be the end of our citizens' participation period
Mr. Mayor?
for this evening. Yes, sir. Councilmember Waring.
I would like to offer the gentleman who besmirched Mr. Moody as being corrupt and indirectly all of us being incorrupt. If he has facts, give him the opportunity to come explain those facts.
Well, thank you, sir. Would you like to share any specific information, sir?
I have no specific information. I'm talking about the process being corrupt. I did not besmirch anybody. I'm anticipating the corrupted process, clearly, is what I said. It will happen. It's not a fact, it's a prediction.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor.
All right. Yes, sir. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Lewis.
Yes, sir. Regarding the homelessness, you did a good job of working with this committee on last week.
Yes, sir.
Trying to pull a group of people together, along with the Coalition for Homelessness together.
Yes,
It is very unfortunate that we have all these homeless people in Charleston.
Yes, sir.
But they're not only a part of Charleston, they're in Charleston County. They're in the state of South Carolina. So you have pulled a group together. It is my hope that the county, the city of North Charleston, and the state of South Carolina would continue to work with you and to work with this council and the homelessness group in the city that's trying to eradicate this problem. But it seems like people look down and think that this is just a city problem. But to me, it's a state problem. It's a county problem, because these people are residents of this county. Whether they are taxpayers or not, they're living in this county. So I hope that people will really get that in their head. I hope that if there's any group that's out there would like to help these people, like you said last week, setting up a website to try to get monies to help get places for them to stay, to buy food, to buy furniture. We want everybody to know we are trying to help these people, not hurt these people. But it's going to take all of us, because every one of us sitting in this room right now could walk out that door and we could be homeless in 10 minutes. So this mayor and this council need your support this mayor and this council would encourage you to encourage your state and your county officials to work with us so we could solve this problem and not think that we're just trying to run people from their home, what they call tent city, but we want to help them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your insight, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to echo what my colleague said, because I think that you're doing a wonderful job with that. Most of these tent city that you see in the homelessness, they're mostly in the district that I represent. And that's where you'll find most of them on the east side, or the east central, or under the bridges. That's all the district I represent, which is District 4. And I'm out there traveling around, and I'm out there with them sometime, talking with them. And we have to, it's a long journey with that, because a lot of those people have to be counseled. And that's why we're working with the mayor, brought up 180 Place, so they can be counseled. You have a lot of people that's mentally challenged there. You have a lot of people that's homeless veterans there. You have a lot of people there that just don't want any permanent housing. And they'll tell you they don't want permanent housing because they feel that Charleston is a forgiving city, that we give everything to everyone. So then we are doing bad by giving them everything there too, because that's why they're going to stay. So now we have to work with them and tell them it's a different way. We have to counsel with them. We're going to work with the various housing authorities in North Charleston County, the state, and the City of Charleston Housing Authority to see if we can find permanent housing for them, but they have to be counseled first. And as I stated to the mayor before, we're going to take very special care because they are human beings. So we have to know that they're human beings. They're not animals. We're going to push them out in the streets. If we feel that it's going to take longer, then as the mayor stated, we will kind of prolong our time in doing what we have to do. But something has to be done. They're out there, but everyone's going to sit down and say, oh, we're doing the homeless until something happens. And as soon as something happened out there, or something fall off the bridge, or a brick fall and hit someone, they come and sue. Then they say, oh, the city of Charleston is not doing anything. It's not only the city of Charleston. We are trying to do some things. But we, as a people in the city of Charleston, need to contact our state legislative, our state senators, and get them involved also. Let them know that, hey, they're in the state of South Carolina. They're in the city of Charleston, but they're in the county of Charleston also. But the mayor is really, Mayor Tettleberg is really stepping up to the plate, and we are trying to do some things to help them, because they know they're still our brothers and sisters.
Thank you, Councilmember
And getting back
Mitchell.
with the, on this, what we are discussing now pertaining to what we are doing, this is going to be a hot topic with the Planning Commission. And we're not saying that we are throwing away the Planning Commission. We need volunteers. We like the volunteers, so we place the volunteers there. But this is something that we looked at over so far, the council members, and I'm not speaking to all the council members, but we looked at this over and over again and said, well, you know, we are a legislative body. We are elected by you all to be able to do what we're doing here today. We, so far as the Planning Commission, sure we recommend certain people to the Planning Commission. A lot of things happen sometimes. But we as elected officials, as a legislative body, you don't come and tell us how many votes that you need to do thus and so. People might get angry with me, but that'll be all right. This is my home, Charleston, too. 67 years, right here. And with the struggles of the city of Charleston, I've been here to struggle of the city of Charleston. We said we coming together and working together. That's not happening here in the city of Charleston. I see it every day. Right here in the city of Charleston, I got locked up here 25 times. Right here in the struggle in the city of Charleston. And we as a people said we coming together to work together, but I can hear certain things in there that really appalls me sometimes. We are elected officials. We are a legislative body. And we're going to do things here, I believe, with my colleagues, the betterment for the city of Charleston and everyone else. And I've seen it over and over again, and I'm hearing some things that it really disturbs me. So I think we need to work together. We are not throwing away, we're not pushing the Planning Commission aside. And it's only, if this approved here, it's only 2 votes different from what it is now, 10. From what it is now, it's 10 votes. We're going down to 8 votes if we approve this. But things, just because something is happening for 40 years or 50 years, that don't mean it's happening good today, it's good for us today. Changes happen, changes are doing take place. In the city of Charleston, changes are taking place. In the city of Charleston, you know that most of these streets you see in here was owned by African Americans. Most of them are living here. It's not like that anymore. We have a big diversity city that we need to work together. So that's what it is the other day, and that's what we're trying to do, is sometimes changes have to take place, and we have to accept changes even if we don't like it sometimes. But it's not to hurt anyone. This is to make things better. We are moving forward now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mitchell. If council will allow me to address one issue that's prevalent tonight, and that's our homeless initiative for just a couple of minutes, because it's not on our agenda for any action or discussion, but the initiative that the city began just last week to address homelessness is to address a real and serious problem, and Councilmember Lewis is totally correct. It's not just in the city of Charleston, it's in our county, it's in our region and our state and even our own country. And I believe that the best solution, it sounds very trite maybe, to solve homelessness is to try to provide a home for those who are homeless. And so the goal and intent of our initiative is to provide housing. Now we realize that there's a short supply of affordable housing in this community. And we realize that our average incomes are below the national average, while our average housing costs are way above the national average. So we have kind of a disconnect in those two trends. But our initiative is to support those providers like 180 Place, like the Homeless Coalition. There are church groups. There are even private individuals who are out there trying to help homeless folks and folks who are living at Tent City to find a home. And we want to support that effort. And I'm very thankful that we have a resource like 180 Place in our community. I met with Mayor Summey on Monday and asked him to please provide another homeless shelter in the city of North Charleston, because they really don't have that kind of resource like we do in our city, and we need to approach this as a regional problem. Regarding the cold weather we are having, luckily there are some church groups and occasionally the county that will open temporary shelters when the weather turns cold. And in fact, Hibben United Methodist Church in Mount Pleasant is open tonight and tomorrow night if anyone at Tent City wants to relocate to get a warmer place this evening. But over time, as the population of folks grew at our Tent City, it's an untenable long-term situation. It's not really humane. We don't have facilities. There's no bathrooms. There's no showers. And think about trying to get a new start in life. Think about trying to get yourself together. That if you wanted to go out to apply for a job tomorrow, or if you needed some mental health services or some help trying to get over an addiction, you're just not in a good spot to be living on Department of Transportation property without permission, where there are no facilities. And as the population has grown, it's really become, beyond our need to help our brothers and sisters, it's really become a public safety matter as well. So the intent and goal is to try to help find housing. We're working with our partners to identify those individuals that are now living in tents who we can find apartments for or permanent housing. And at the end of a self-prescribed 60-day period, we hope to have another temporary shelter in addition to 180 Place where we can temporarily house folks. And if we need a little more time to make it happen, we'll look at that when the time comes. But the point is to try to get more permanent housing for folks. And that's why we put some money into a fund, and I asked the public to help support that. We've opened a fund called the Homeless to Hope Fund. It'll be administered by the Coastal Community Foundation, and the purpose will be to help folks pay security deposits, pay their first month or two rent, to try to get them into more permanent housing, and not for staff costs or anything like that, but to go directly to help people relocate. And I plead the public to take inventory of any possible housing opportunities that you have or know of, your church group, or if you're a landlord. We had a church come forward today that owns 2 homes. The homes need a little repair, and we're going to try to work out an arrangement to help them get the 2 houses habitable. There are 7 bedrooms that they're willing to offer for homeless folks from Tent City to live in, and we should have those ready in the next couple of months. So I ask the public and you here tonight if you could take inventory of any possibilities for apartments or places where we can help our brothers and sisters find a place to live. That's really the goal of what we're trying to do. And I ask, as Councilmember Lewis did, for us all come together. This is not meant to be a divisive initiative, but one that really brings our community together and try to help our homeless brothers and sisters. Thank you very much for allowing me that time. Next on the agenda is petitions and communications, and the only item we have is the appointment of Councilmember Wagner to the Charleston Area Transportation Study. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations. We'll next have committee reports. First, the Committee on Ways and Means.
Move for the adoption.
Second.
Which includes the ordinance.
Ordinance.
Which includes the ordinance. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We don't have any action to take, but would the chairman of Public Works and Utilities like to make a report?
I'd just like to report to, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to report to council that we did hear information on the Bell Terry situation with a gated entrance across public access. And so we got an update on that, and we're going to ask legal to come in and give us an opinion on that at the next meeting. And also the number of questions that the people out in the Hickory Hills and Shadow Moss and Hickory Farms area, Grand Oaks to a small extent, had at the December meeting, those questions are being addressed and will be pushed out to council as soon as the proper answers are received, okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is bills up for 3rd reading, which was a bill that extended the moratorium for new gathering place applications until March the 11th, 2016. And I would ask if this bill should receive 3rd reading, have its name changed from bill to ordinance, and be engrossed for ratification.
Mr. Mayor, if we can take the bills up for 2nd reading, and then we come to the 3rd reading with the bills, we can take that one at the same time?
Well, we already have the motion on the
Okay,
floor.
go ahead.
We have a motion on the floor
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is the bills up for, and I have to sign this. But as I do that, the next we have bills up for 2nd reading.
Mr. Mayor, we can take 1 through 10.
We have a motion to take bills 1 through 10 all together. Any discussion? Councilmember Moody.
That was amended to include the Folly Road Boulevard, so
Yes, and we mentioned that to the planning staff, and I believe Jacob is going to tell you why it remains like this on the agenda.
So
But it's included in the minutes.
the Folly Road Plan itself is not a city document. It is a document which was commissioned by the Council of Governments, the COG, and funded by the DOT. So we can't amend that document itself. However, when we amend our comprehensive plan, staff will adopt the recommendations for an area which goes beyond that recommended in the plan per council member comments as of last meeting. So city policy will reflect the expansion of the Folly Road recommendations, but the document itself is not our document to amend.
I guess that's okay.
Can I, just a point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councilmember Moody, because I agree with him. So it will be reflected in our Century 5 plan that the entire stretch of Folly Road, including the boulevard up to 17, be included. Because that, in the end, is our document that we actually go back to, as you know.
That's correct.
Okay. I think that is thank you.
Is that acceptable? Because we can also always entertain a new motion to to add it.
We're
Yeah.
accepting the Rethink Folly Road plan, which was approved, and my point was that I wanted to include the rest of it, and plan director assured me that it's included.
We discussed it extensively.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other discussion to take all bills 1 through 10 for approval? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Third reading.
Next will be a third reading
For all the bills.
for all 10 bills, again, that they be, the name changed and engrossed for ratification. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now I bet I got some signing to do,
Yes, you do.
which I can do probably while we're discussing the next bill. So bills up for first reading. First, we have an ordinance to approve plan unit development for the marshes at Cooper River.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Secondly, we have an ordinance that's been discussed here this evening already to modify the vote required by City Council in the event of a matter that is disapproved by the Planning Commission.
I'll move for approval.
We have a move for approval and a second. Discussion. Councilmember Williams.
Yes, originally, no one seemed to have been able to tell us the origin of this original amendment of the 75%. I don't oppose looking at changing this, but what I do oppose is some other information that I think we need to consider. We need to consider this matter of expert versus non-expert. If just for normal procedure we want to say that other entities does not have to go that far, like overriding the president, overriding the governor, I concur with that. But this is a little bit more complex. I would hope that we would take a step back because, you know, the Planning Commission, someone has to take the earnest of who's knowledgeable, who brings the expertise in. We have to kind of look at that. And I just think we might just need to take a step back and just kind of look how we can involve, how we can get this done. And I think that the lower the threshold is, the more political it really is. And that's the only point that I'm drawing out. I'm very concerned that that threshold is too low. It brings the opportunity for it to become political. This body, in its original rights, all power comes from this body. And we proved that a week ago by overturning something that Planning Commission 11-1. We have that authority. And if we have that authority, but because of what the Planning Commission and the citizens, what they do, this thing about who's the expert versus the non-expert, we got to take a closer look at that. We got to take a closer look at if this Planning Commission body is the people who have been appointed by members of council and the mayor approved. We invested and vetted them to be the person who we rely on. I'm not comfortable that if I can't rely on the recommendation of the Planning Committee and I can't rely on staff to look at the thing clearly, then I just got a problem with that because I think if it's about reigning in power, it's a little different. What is this actually going to do? The bottom line is, I can look at it, the threshold's too low. The threshold is too low. It's just like the 75% in the first, too much, it's just too low. It brings and it calls in political, and we are politicians. And people from all over call us, and we know that to be true. And I think the intentions of this is all good, but I do think that we are a political body. We receive phone calls, we talk to people, but I just want to go a little slower on this thing of expert. And some of the emails, it city council members should not be given, city council members, by definition, are politicians, have broader focus, and are not expected to possess the same well-developed appreciation for fine buildings and construction. Council members must rely on their colleagues and on planning commission for that. I don't know. I just think I want to take a step back. I want to take a step back, but I'm willing to change it, and I wanted to change it. I wanted to change it based on the fact that that threshold, it just didn't make sense that we could not be a little consistent. But now when you come to this thing about how the planning commission works, I think we would be protected and responsive to the public by the thresholds. We need to look at how we can move the threshold up just a little bit. Maybe the 60% with full council, but I'm very concerned with the threshold. It's too low, and I know from experience when thresholds are too low, it can open a Pandora box. So I respectfully like to have a discussion if we can defer this and look and just defer it and look and see if we can kind of look at it a little different. And then here's another question: where did the 60% come from? I mean, where did the 6% come from? Well, answer it.
Next on the floor is Councilmember Wilson. Oh, that'll be fine, Council. If you defer, Councilmember Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And you might be able to answer the question.
Well,
Yeah.
I will try to answer Councilmember Williams' question. When you talk about 60%, if you just, a numbers person here, 75% is 10 votes, 66 2/3% is 9 votes, 60% is 8 votes. That's assuming that everybody's here. There was a comment that was made earlier by one of the speakers that having 60%, of those present, you could manipulate the vote. I would contend that that's exactly what can happen when you've got 10 and somebody doesn't want to vote. All they got to do is step out of the room and they can manipulate the vote just the same. So, and we've actually seen that. I know I've seen it not so much in here, but other chambers where people would, that were voting, walk out of a room so they didn't have to cast a vote. So, having said that, I think the manipulation can work with both ways if you want to be honest about it. You're right, Councilmember Williams, that we are politicians. We're elected. And I think that's where they say if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's where I think it is broke. When we saw some of the things that came down that required us to have a 75% vote, what I think was going on was we were seeing something that was broke. I mean, we've got elected officials that every 4 years we have to go out and ask people to vote for us. And that's a pretty heavy responsibility. And it just seems to me like, I mean, we approve $200 million worth of budgets. We do all kinds of stuff. But yet, when it comes to a vote on this, something like this from the Planning Commission, that they've denied something, it takes 10 members of this body to overturn that. What if we just said, why don't we take 75% of Planning Commission to disapprove something? I mean, why is it the burden on us? We're elected. They're not elected. They're appointed by us, or they're appointed at the recommendation of the mayor by us. But, and I thank every single one of them for their service, because there's, I mean, all these commissions that are out there, these people give their time. The one lady that spoke is a commissioner. I know before I come to this meeting, I've got all of mine voted. I know how I'm going to vote on everything unless I hear some information different. I read through all these documents. I read that whole damn audit proposal that's 300 pages because I thought I was expected to do that. So I think I do my due diligence. And so why should somebody that's appointed have greater authority than the body around here elected? So we're moving it from 10 down to 8. I think that is appropriate. And what we're saying here, just like in the federal government or state government, the president vetoes a bill, it takes 2/3 of the people to overturn that veto. So the reason for that is very simple. They want the body that elect or approved the bill in the beginning to take pause and to think about, okay, we've got a difference of opinion. Let's see where we are here. So that's why you do have that step up in authority or step up in required thinking. I don't know of another board or body or anything where it requires 75%. And even with the 2/3, both groups are elected. General Assembly, Governor, Congress, the President. I mean, by a simple majority, they can deny something. And then we got to have this super majority to overturn that. I just think that process is wrong. And that's where I'm coming from. I don't have any axe to grind here about any group or anything else. I'm just saying that's the way that I see it. And that's why I'm going to support it in changing that number, moving it from 10 to 8. Because I do think we ought to take pause and be considerate of it.
Councilmember Wilson.
Corrupt, I'm not. A politician, I am.
Thank you, Councilmember Moody. Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start off with two cliches. First of all, nothing stays the same. And secondly, be careful what you wish for. And the point that I'm trying to make is there's a perception tonight by those who spoke that this is a downtown issue, which in actuality, this is a citywide issue because downtown doesn't stop at the borders of the rivers. We have other sections of the city. What we see are these boards and these commissions in the city that are changing over. Those who have served the city very well for years are choosing to retire, and things are changing, which means we will be appointing. And those new appointees may not necessarily live downtown. The boards and commissions have been very peninsula oriented over the years, and I think that's going to change. And what downtown residents and those who feel so strongly about tonight may actually help them in the future when James Island, Johns Island, Daniel Island, West Ashley, Planning Commission members, or those who serve on other boards and commissions are voting on issues for downtown, and they feel that they are not understood, they can't understand what's going on downtown, and they come to City Council saying, please overturn what the Planning Commission did. So it's going to work both ways, I think, even more acutely in the future. I rely on the Planning Commission, and quite honestly, the vast majority of the time we agree. We don't have this instance happen very often, and even when the Planning Commission comes to us with a disapproval, the vast majority of the time we disagree with their disapproval and uphold that. So these are few and far between. The most recent incident that we saw was decided at the Planning Commission level by a 5-4 vote, which could have thrown this city into a potential lawsuit based on a Planning Commission that is made up of a non-elected body. It came to this council, we overturned that with, I believe, a unanimous vote. So I think...
There was one nay.
Pardon me. I stand corrected. I stand corrected. Thank you. But there again, we need to look at the reality of the situation. This simply does not happen very often, and the vast majority of the time we agree. As far as intense development pressures, that doesn't stop downtown either. You all know what I'm facing on James Island. So, and I feel that well, forget that, I'm losing my train of thought, but please take into account that there's essentially, we're essentially unified on this issue with us and what the Planning Commission, what they rule most of the time. And with that, I'm sorry, I'm tired today. I'll go ahead and stop now.
Thank you. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, my apologies to you, Mr. Moody, Councilman Moody, that anybody would ever call into question your integrity. I think it's awful that anyone would say that indirectly or directly to you. That you're the most honorable man I know, And I think that calling into question this process greatly disturbs me, and I'm very disappointed that has tainted our discussion concerning this matter. Second, I want to echo some of the other comments that were made, and that as a legislative body, we are responsible, we're ultimately responsible for the passing of any ordinance or bill that comes before us, and that is our ultimate responsibility. We need to take ownership of that and be ready to address those, good or bad or indifferent. That's how any matter comes before us. We are the ultimate buck stops here body. I am concerned with how this is perceived. I am concerned with the impact that a vote to modify this bill will take place with the issues that are before us and are coming down the pike. First of all, this ordinance has served well for 40 years, and we know that, and it's done pretty well. I don't know the history of this ordinance, but I don't like the idea that a planning commission or any body that we appoint or we pay for has the ability by simple majority to set precedent or set a rule, and then requires a supermajority of this body to reverse it. That does not sit well with me. It just seems that's out of place. So the short of it is that this is going to have a tremendous impact, not just for what's going to happen in 2016, but down the road. And what I echo Councilmember Williams' concern is to defer this, to review this a little bit more thoroughly, to look at the impact on this. I think that the points that are brought up are very valid points. Maybe an 8-vote majority is the appropriate vote. But the whole absurdity of this thing was what our esteemed corporate counsel and Mr. Seekings brought to our attention. Whatever we do here today goes back to the Planning Commission, and then if we don't like what they say, we have to take a supermajority to reverse it. That, to me, seems ludicrous. And because of all that, what I'm wanting to do is take a step back, defer this for further review to see what we really need to do with this thing, because some way along the line, this has gotten out of hand. And to reemphasize, I agree with the points about the simple majority part of it, and I agree with the points that we don't need to have a supermajority to reverse that. But I do want to make sure that before we take a vote on this, that we look into the purpose of that supermajority and what other impact it has, because it only affects, as I understand corporate counsel to say to us, it only affects a no vote. And I wanted us to take a step back and look at this a little bit better to make sure that as we go down this path, we're not making a bigger mistake than where we are right now with this thing. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Councilmember Seekings.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Seeing as we're all starting with trite statements, I mean, the enemy of good is better, and what we have now is working. I mean, I just sort of came from nowhere, and one of the themes of what we've said around this table tonight is we are elected officials in a representative capacity through single-member districts, 1 for 10,000. That's what we do. Well, tonight in these chambers, I kept pretty close count. 12 people came to speak, representing 6 associations directly, 20 indirectly, 7 districts, and the vote from the people was unanimous. There was not a single person who came to support this ordinance that we're about to vote on. And that should tell us something. Think about who the people are who came to